Hello and welcome to There's No Business Like, a podcast where friends and industry colleagues explore topics and interview leaders in our industry of professional theatrical touring.
Hey, it's Josh here. Thanks for joining us for our first bonus episode of There's No Business Like. We are so excited to offer just a little bit of insight into James Shapiro's working with Othello on Broadway and how he works with that Broadway production as well as the Public Theater's productions of Shakespeare in the Park. Enjoy this little bit from James Shapiro.
I'm James Shapiro, professor of English at Columbia University, where I've taught for 40 years. I've written a number of books about Shakespeare and about theater internationally. And I work with theater companies, the Public Theater, where I'm a Shakespeare scholar in residence, for many years with the Royal Shakespeare Company, and currently with the Broadway production of Othello that'll open in March.
Explain to me what the work is you do with the Public Theater. I know you're advising a production of Othello, which is inherently a political work as well, and gonna, I think, flow nicely into what we're talking about today. So what does that mean to sort of advise a production like that?
My work for the public is really the most exciting thing in my life and feeds back into my classroom teaching. I don't teach in a theater department, I teach in an English department. But my approach, obviously, is Shakespeare on stage and having students act stuff out and then talk about it in my Shakespeare class. The Public Theater brought me in to work on two programs. One, the Shakespeare in the Park, the free Shakespeare that Joe Papp created, opened in 1962 at the Delacorte, which is getting refurbished and will reopen to a terrific production of Twelfth Night sometime late this summer. So my job is I sit down with the director. We work up a text. I usually do the preparatory work, looking at, if it were Othello, I'd look at the 1622 and 1623 editions, figure out how to create a version of the play that works. Many of these plays, even in Shakespeare's days, ran to over 3 hours. So they were cut then, they're cut now. If Shakespeare's Hamlet had been staged uncut in 1600, Richard Burbage's Hamlet would have been fighting the sword fight in the dark at great personal risk. So we know these plays were cut. I cut the production down to size. The director will say 2.5 hours, 2 hours. Or in the other productions I work on for the Public Theater, which go to prisons and community centers, that's a 90-minute show. So I butcher Shakespeare basically down to a usable size for today's audiences with limited attention spans to begin with. And then I work the first week or two with the actors, explaining the conventions, telling them what the words mean, explaining what a nice thee is and what an abusive thee is, in which context, so that they know what the words mean.
Sure.
And at a time where so many people are relying on No Fear Shakespeare, that edition with the butchered modern translation on the facing page, I try to help them understand how scholarship can help them. And I should say, if a theater company asks me, should we have a Shakespeare scholar or literary scholar in residence, I'd probably say no, because most of the people who do what I do have very strong ideas about what these plays are about and would share that with the company, which is completely useless. I'm not going to tell Denzel Washington what Othello's character is about.
Right.
I assure you that would be a dangerous thing and a foolhardy thing to do. What I can do is explain what the words mean so that actors and great and superstar actors can run with that. And it's thrilling to be in the room for the last 2 months of Othello watching really a superb cast and a brilliant director, Kenny Leon, figure out how to retell the story of Othello for our age. And I do the same at the Public. We'll be doing that 12th Night this summer. I'm thrilled. Superstar cast for that. Great director I work with. I'm like a kid in a candy store. I get to go in with my knowledge, share my knowledge, sit back. And because I'm 69 years old and not connected with the cultural forces shaping your lives, your kid's life, just the lives of young people out there. I live in 1599, so it's much easier for me to learn what's going on in our world by imparting my knowledge,
Oh,
although I'm
interesting.
cut off from a lot of the cultural
Sure.
currents, not the political currents, but the cultural ones.
Mhm. You mean you're not on TikTok, Jim?
I've never, ever looked at anything on TikTok. I have no social media. I only got a smartphone 3 years ago. So I am behind or disconnected from the times, which gives me a great advantage. It's not muddied.
I
I'm looking from a 400-year-old, or in the case of my most recent book, a 90-year
right.
gap.
Hope you enjoyed that bonus episode. If you have not listened to the entire interview with James Shapiro, you can find it on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube or Facebook. Come back and catch us later this week for discussion of that James Shapiro interview, as well as discussion between the podcast hosts as to what is happening in our arts industry today as far as political influence and social change. We look forward to seeing you then.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to There's No Business Like. Our producers and hosts are Brian Zelmer, Josh Benson, Kevin Maynard, Katie Miller, and me, Danielle Van Hook. Views expressed in this podcast are ours alone and are not reflective of the organizations we are a part of. Keep up with us at nobusinesslike.com. There you'll find links to all of our episodes and socials. If you like this podcast, give us a like, a follow, a review, or our favorite, a 5-star rating. Oh wait, what was that site? I got it, don't worry. It is nobusinesslike.com. Do I sound out bus-I-ness every time I type it? Yep, sure do. Stay in touch, my friends.